These are what I've identified, and I've heard them, and I've read like thousands of self-help books and listened to tapes and audio, and I've been doing this since I was suicidal in college and tried to figure out like, okay, how do I not be this way and how do I get out of this? And I've just kind of made it my life's mission to use myself as this human science experiment of constantly testing and trying out different methods, reading different books, learning universal principles. And what I've tried to do is say, okay, this is when I read something like 20 different times by 20 different authors, and it's all kind of saying the exact same thing, and then I implement it in my life and I test it and I try it and I see that it actually works, then I kind of consider that a universal truth or a total truth. And these are the things that I try to help people to build their life and their habits around. So yes, those are the 5 cores. These are all things that I've found. You ignore any of these and you're in big trouble. Talk to you a few minutes after this. Perfect, Sonny. Yes, you can. Just DM me and we'll chat. We're ignoring them. It's just tough. It's just not that we're ignoring them. It's just tough. So this is a good point. When I was mentioning systems, so I need you guys to hear me. This is extremely important. You all have these little systems that you have developed, and these have stemmed from your past experiences, the main influences in your life, such as your parents, the schooling system you were brought in, your peers. Now it's media and things that you're digesting every day and going into your brain, and you've now kind of got a perspective on the world, so to speak, right? You've got okay, this is how I see the world, this is how I'm operating it. And we may know in the back of our heads that there's certain things we know we could probably do better, but for most of us, we're pretty blind to really understanding, like, if I do X, I'll get Y out of it. And Y being the end goal of being as happy and awesome as you can possibly be. The problem is most people, they do tons of X's, but they don't understand the consequences and how they're going to compound over time and how they're going to form their happiness and determine who they ultimately become. And little things just add up, and you don't think it's a big deal to not brush your teeth, or to miss flossing, but you do that every day and you're not going to have teeth in a couple of years, right? So it's these things that don't seem like a huge deal and a big red alarm fire at first, but they will compound, and it's super important that you get your act together and identify them so that you can start working on them. And I have a system to help you do that. If you haven't already, check out my website, get your happiness baseline score, figure out where you currently stand in each of your 5 core areas. And that's at M-O-O-R-E, momentum.com. Hello, dreamy girl. I like to turn these into lives with my peeps because I haven't had as much time to do these, and so this is a good opportunity. So we've already kind of started talking about, why don't we continue talking about some of these core areas that y'all may be struggling with. I would like to hear from some of you what out of the 5 cores, again, to get more detail, you can go to moremomentum.com. But in the meantime, it's your mindset, it's your relationships, it's your physical health, it's your emotional health, and it's your, what did I miss? Career and finances, I think I missed. So those are all important areas that you want to continue to be growing, but it's important how you grow in each. It's not just like career and finances, for instance. It's not just growing your money, which has become this obsession of the world, and we think that the more money and power we have, the happier we'll be. I promise you that's not the case. I know you've probably heard that a million times, and you shrug and you roll your eyes, but I'm telling you, from somebody that built a business from scratch and exited, and when I sold a couple years ago, literally had as much money, enough money to not ever technically have to work again. I very quickly determined that if I wasn't continuing to grow in these areas, these other areas of my life, including my career and finance, by starting something new, by doing something that fills my soul and I'm passionate about, and I'm using my strengths in, which is more momentum and helping people discover their true power and success and entrepreneurial spirit, then I wouldn't be happy. You can't just sit on a beach and drink pina coladas. I promise you. Like that is not happiness, even though everybody seems to think it is. That'll be fun for like 3 days, and then you're like, okay, now what, right? So just remember that. But yes, money is important to the degree where you want to make a certain amount to be able to live the lifestyle that where you're comfortable and you're not constantly stressed about how am I going to pay my bills and these types of things. But it's actually a proven scientific formula. The number's a lot lower than you think. It's changed in recent years. I don't know exactly what it is, but last I checked, it was like around 60-some thousand in the US, which is not that much money, but that allows you to have the money that, and I guess obviously it depends on where you live, to be able to drive a car, have a house, take care of your family and these types of things. And then after that, it does not exponentially become better. You do not exponentially. So anyways, so we had a comment here. First one was, my mindset in my relationships, I get into automatic negative thoughts. And this is from Perfect Sonnet. And once I have a negative thought, my brain runs with it, and I'm literally saying insane things to my partner. And then 10 seconds later, I know it was horrible and mean and untrue, and I say sorry. So I can see myself doing horrible things, and yet still, this is a good one. So this is mindset. This is more relationships core, and it can be tricky. Some of them cross over, but this is more, your ability for emotional intelligence, which I put into the relationship core. It's your ability to understand and have command and control over your own emotions, as well as understand and be able to act appropriately and respond appropriately to the emotions of others. This is huge. They call it your EQ. It's similar to growing up, we always heard your IQ. And everybody's like all about your IQ. How smart is this person? How smart? But now studies have shown that your EQ is actually more important in determining your happiness and your success in your career than your IQ. It's more important to have emotional intelligence where you understand your own stuff, you understand other people, you understand how to respond, and you don't lose your cool. So losing anger, that's something that runs in my family personally. My mom, it started with my grandfather, who's actually general in World War II. Kind of a shout out to Grandpa, great guy, but had an awful temper and took it out on my mom and her 3 siblings. And then she ended up doing the same to me. And so it's something I'm very aware of, and I've had a short fuse growing up. And now that I have 3 small kids, I make sure that I'm aware of it. And all you can do is continually work on it, right? And so am I perfect? And do I sometimes lose it? Yes, but it's way better when you understand, okay, this is a habit that I'm working on. This is a failure habit that's making me less happy. I am going to write it down and score myself every single day. So for instance, relationship core, emotional intelligence, that would be like the top habit that you're working on. And all the things that surround it, like losing your cool, getting angry, not being sympathetic to others when they're having issues and making it all about you and these types of things. And so just by being aware of it, and then at the beginning of the day, just sort of taking a couple deep breaths and reminding yourself and just being like, okay, today we're going to work on our emotional intelligence. This is what it means. If an incident comes up, so for instance, for you, let's go back to the comment. Perfect Sonnet. When you lose your cool, you're going to start becoming aware of when you're starting to lose your cool. And there's certain things that happen, right? So you want to say, okay, what's happening to my body? Am I getting shortness of breath? Like, am I physically getting warmer? Is my mind just starting to race? Am I just like about to blow up? Like whatever your symptoms are for when you start to get angry, you want to start becoming aware of those things. And then what you do is the more you become aware of them, the more you sort of catch yourself in the act. And it's not going to happen right away. But if you are scoring yourself at the end of the day and basically giving your score of 1 to 5 on how you did in that particular core, relationships and that emotional intelligence habit, you will start becoming more aware of it. And so for instance, with my wife and I, we have had lots of fights in the past, but they've gotten so much better. And now we're to the point where when we both start to get to a point where we know we're starting to raise our voice, or we're losing our cool and our emotional intelligence is low, and we're letting our emotions take over, we separate, especially when the kids are around, which is almost always. So, we don't want to yell in front of our kids. Again, that's what happened to my mom. That's what happened to her dad. And I'm breaking the chain. I am not going to do it. I am not going to pass that on. And I'm determined. And so we basically say, we're starting to lose our cool. Let's take a breather and let's talk about it later. Sometimes we'll write emails to each other. That really helps. Like, so if you really want to get something out and you're really frustrated and you feel like the other person's not hearing you, sometimes if you're having a hard time where you're both putting your walls up when you try to talk, write an email to them. I know it sounds crazy, but it really works because my wife and I have used it, and she has time to sort of sit down. She's better at it than I am. Sit down and kind of put her thoughts into, calm, rational, organized sentences to where I can then sort of be calm and rational and take a look at them and be like, okay, this is what she's saying. It's not coming at me with her fist doubled. She's, saying it very rationally, and this is how she feels. And if I care about my wife and I want her to be happy and I want this family to run well, I need to take this into consideration and say, okay, how can we solve this problem? So to me, at the end of the day, the end goal for you and your spouse is to get on the same team, to feel like it's you guys that are moving together versus you guys doing this, right? And I think a lot of couples fall into that pattern of, you both have your walls up and it's just a matter of time before one person says something and then it bounces off the other, and then it's just like, right? And they're just kind of like not listening to each other, talking over the other person, walls are up. Why doesn't this person understand me? You got to remember, everybody comes from their own unique set of backgrounds. Again, like we were talking about earlier, your parents, the schools you were brought up in, the values you were given, now the internet and the media that you engulf, the friends that you hang out, like the experiences that you had, we all have totally unique. And in fact, here's a good example. My wife is a twin. She's a twin. She was born the exact same time, a minute earlier than her sister. They're not identical, but they're totally different. And it's because even though they had a lot of these things the same, they still had different experiences. Their brain works differently. They see things differently. So you cannot, hear me people, you cannot expect people to understand to see things the same way you do. And once you get that, once you truly understand, well, they just have their own way of seeing things. And instead of me trying to ram down their throat the way that I feel, I am going to try to see how I can get on the same page with them and figure out a solution together. If you look at it, it's like it's a problem that we both need to solve as a team versus you versus them. You wrote, good, sonnet, you wrote, great idea, I can write better, communicate better, good, like that. Hope you heard that other stuff too. Yep, you're welcome, perfect sonnet. So yeah, and you mentioned patience, I saw. Yes, but patience is one of those things where, again, you can't just say, I want to have patience, because it's not going to work. Like, you have to have a system to have patience, and you got to go to the root cause of the problem. You can't just put a Band-Aid on it. And to me, like I said, I think the root of having patience and getting on the same team to where you're not having these issues with the other person is truly understanding where they're trying to understand and being empathetic from where they're coming from. Having that emotional intelligence and saying, this person, I understand their emotions, I understand where they're coming from, I understand where I'm coming from, how can we figure this out to work together? And then patience just kind of automatically comes, because then you're not, right? So you see the difference between saying, I want to be patient, okay, great, like so do I. But versus, okay, here's an actual thing that I know I need to work on that's going to just naturally make me more patient by understanding the other person and wanting to work with them. It just changes your whole way of looking at it, right? It changes your mindset. So hopefully that was helpful. Any other questions? And, feel free to hit me. Let's see. Hi. Hello, I'm Italian. Hello, Francesco. Welcome, Italia. Love it. Yeah, so again, relationships, core, emotions, these are things that we take for granted, and there's no schooling on this stuff, right? It's not like we grow up and we take like an emotional intelligence class. Like, for the most part, we're left to figure all this stuff out on our own, and it ain't easy being cheesy. Old Chester Cheetos reference, my favorite snack. Bad for you, but moderation, that's a whole nother core. That's physical health. So let's switch gears. I'm just gonna start talking. If anybody has any questions, I'm gonna actually stay, since we're talking about relationships, I'm gonna stay in relationships, and I'm gonna talk about another super important habit that you can work on that will really, 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 really help your relationships, not just with your spouse, but with your family members, with your friends, with strangers even, or people, acquaintances that you see from time to time in the office, at the bakery, whatever. And colleagues, people that you work with, and trying to build relationships to make money, right? Because at the end of the day, I think we all have probably figured out at this point that the better you do, the more the better the relationship you have with somebody else, the better your chances of doing business with each other, them wanting to do business with you, vice versa. It's just how we're built, right? And so, you got to understand. So anyways, with all that build up, here it is, fine people. Make the other person feel special. I would say that this is the number one, well, emotional intelligence is right up there. We'll call it a tie for number one. Making the other person feel special, going out of your way to listen, to actively listen when they're talking, to ask them questions, to remember stuff like their name. I know, sounds complicated, right? Little details about their life. So for instance, I play paddle in this league every week. And it's a lot of guys that I'm meeting constantly every week because we play different matches. It's sort of like tennis and ping pong combined, but you're in a cage. It's crazy. It's a Midwest thing. I never thought I'd play it, but here I am. Anyway, so these things basically, I meet all these new people every week, and I just really, really work hard, and I use little tricks and mnemonics to remember their names. And I sort of associate, like last night I played Jerry and Tom, Jerry and Jeff. And I remember their names because I immediately associated Jerry with the cat from Tom and Jerry. He had a hair that kind of reminded me. And Jeff reminded me of this guy, Jeff, that I used to know. And I was like, okay, that one's an easy one, right? And so I just spent like a couple seconds on that. And I remember their names. And so throughout the match, as we're playing them, I'm saying their names. Yeah, I'm from Minnesota. I've never heard of that game. Yeah, well, look it up. Paddle tennis is the official. It's very interesting. And it's a game that you can play in the winter, which is really cool because they have heated courts that come up. And it's really a really cool game. So I started using their name, and you could just tell when people, by the way, a person's name is the sweetest sound that they can possibly hear. If you use people's names, they love it. They immediately like you. Like, you're instantly likable. Same with asking them questions, like I was saying. So ironically, we feel like our whole thing to get people to like us is to make it all about us. Like, I gotta be awesome. I gotta be funny. No, you don't have to do any of that. The number one easiest way is just make the person feel special, ask them questions, and then shut up, listen, remember their name, remember details about their life, and holy shnikes, will they love you. You're welcome. Hopefully you guys follow that one. And again, you can add this to your list of of habits that you're working on each day. So for your relationship core, I've just given you 2 now. You've got your the one we just talked about, which is making people feel special, and then we've got the emotional intelligence, which we talked about there earlier. And then you just have, so go to my website, More Momentum, MOORE, momentum.com, and there's actually, if you click on the 5 cores at the top, it gives you a little bit more detail about each so you can understand them. But then you just add these as little habits, and you just hold yourself accountable each day. Just use your phone in your notes section. Just say, okay, today, and then you put the next date and the next day, and you basically just say, what did I get? What was my score today? And that's just one way to start really making these habits part of your life and making them obvious and gamifying them by putting it smack dab in your face when you're reading it and you're holding yourself accountable. And remember, gamification, to get these habits to work, you want to reduce the friction. You want to do anything you can to make it easier, to make it obvious, to make them more gratifying, rewarding, satisfying, all these things. And so these are just little tips and tricks to help you do that. So I'm actually going to sign off now because I think I'm actually coming back on for another one. So this has been really great. I hope you guys got some value out of this. Love you guys. Thank you. That was fun. And I'll see you then. Bye.
That's it for the 5 Core Life. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button on this video and pound that subscribe button so you get notified when new episodes drop. Also, please fill out the free 5 Core Life Evaluator quiz. It's a great way to get a baseline of where you are in the 5 cores and which of the 5 cores you need support. In addition, you'll get some actionable advice that you can apply and start improving your life in the areas that you need it most. That's it for today's episode of the 5 Core Life Podcast. Have a wonderful day.
Get moving. Gain momentum. Join the movement. Join Emmett by going to moremomentum.com to take a free life evaluator quiz on where you currently stand in each of your 5 cores.